said, you know, what is it making? And I was expecting him to say, you know, 300, 305. And then he said, came out with 310, and I was like, wow, really?
What is going on, everybody? I'm Stef AB, and welcome to paradise. Now, the 300 BHP fastest in the world Biposto replica MTA, and we're going to do a follow-up video on it because there's a lot of unanswered questions on it about whether or not, you know, how was it built and all that good stuff. I'm in Fuerteventura, as you can see now by the map overlay, and we need to get to Silverstone because, well, it's tracks. Modified Abarth have invited me down, and I'm going to catch up with Bilal and go into full detail on the build of his car. So without further ado, it's probably about right that we, well, head to Silverstone. So let's do this.
Right, so I have finally made it from sunny Spain to brittle cold UK. Now, a lot of you guys in the last video that I did with this man right here, ladies and gentlemen, Bilal, we all remember him from the 300 BHP 695 Biposto replica video. Although it's slightly different now, it's 310 now, isn't it?
Yep, only 310.
So we're going to do the bits that I didn't talk about in the last video, which there's been a lot of demand for, and that is, how do you build the fastest MTA in the world? Because this isn't just it's not a fluke. There's a lot of effort that's gone into this, and we're going to talk about that right now. So I think we're going to get right into it. And I think the first thing we should probably start with is the history of the car. How did this car start its life, and as it's progressively evolved? Go for it.
So the journey originally started in April, 2017. Bought it from an old lady who gave it some welly when she took us out for a test drive.
Nice, we like that.
It was up in Newcastle, so that was a bit of a trek.
And what was it? What did it start its life as? A 135?
I think it was a 140
BHP.
BHP MTA Abarth. It started its life off with a IHI turbo.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't cutting out for me because I was so used to having that power from the Golf, and then I started looking at, you know, what could I do to make this a little bit quicker.
Yeah. Bilal, you talked about the ambition. Were you always looking to get this kind of power out of this car? Where did it?
Yeah, it didn't originally start off with the aim to, you know, get 300 brake horsepower.
Yeah.
It was more of a, okay, can I get a little bit more power out of this car just to enjoy it, because it was going to be a weekend car. So, you know, I went on to the Abarthisti forum.
Yeah.
And then I joined the Abarth Owners Club, and then I came across Modified Abarth.
It changed your life.
On Modified Abarth, I found obviously you. And went into your videos, discovered that you was doing stuff to your Abarth at Pro Alpha, which got me going. So I contacted Pro Alpha, and ended up having my car there for a little while.
Yeah.
I had a TD04 put on.
Yeah.
VMAX 330mm big brake kit. From AirTech front mount intercooler, BMC carbon intake. Yeah. 2.5-inch catback exhaust from Scorpion. Yeah. BMC blow-off valve. The injectors got uprated. Yeah. You know, the sensors, all the rest of it, and it got handed to Tony for a remap.
From Tune for Performance.
Tune for Performance. Yeah. Result was 243 brake horsepower, achieving 268 foot-pounds of torque at 41,000 RPM.
Yeah. And that's no slouch.
It wasn't. It was quite quick. It was it definitely opened my eyes when I took it out for a drive after it had been tuned, and it was a noticeable difference. Yeah. It was really a big hit, and I was thinking to myself, wow, this is quick.
Which actually now, if you look amongst the Abarth audience and the Abarth community, you know, the 240 mark is now, it's a drop in the ocean really. It's very achievable.
Yeah.
Very achievable.
And then got to a point where I started researching what previously had been done to MTAs.
Yeah.
And the one that I found was done by Pro Alpha. I think it reached 280 brake horsepower.
Yeah. For reference, at this point, the myths around the community, well, I mean, when was this? July last year, give and take?
Yeah.
July last, the talk amongst the community was that you couldn't do more than 280 horsepower from an MTA. That was it, you know, you were hitting the ceiling. Until this man came along and did the complete opposite of that, and we'll get into that shortly. Yeah. Because a lot of work has gone into that, isn't it? It's not just about turning boost up on a big turbo.
No. So obviously I needed to research into turbos. I looked into various companies producing turbos, hybrid turbos, and I came across Owen Developments, who specialise in turbo manufacturing, and they build BTCC championship race cars. So I looked into them. Me and Adam decided to go down there for a meeting. By that time I decided that I wanted to forge the engine and go all out.
And so for reference, so the turbo on this car is a hybrid 146 by Owen Developments?
Correct, that's
correct.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And so what other supporting mods did Owens do to effectively bring this build to life?
Yeah, so I researched what I needed with a lot of help from Grant, Adam, and other communities about forging an engine and what it actually means.
Yeah. When you say forge engine, say right, wait, slap in some new pistons and rods and off you go.
Yeah.
But there's so much more. There's different types of pistons.
Yeah, different types of pistons. There's various technicalities. They got to be, engine builders have got to be so precise with the build. Otherwise you just end up ruining your engine.
Yeah.
So I decided to go with Wasner pistons, which are hyper-eutectic pistons. So there are three main piston types. There's cast, there's hyper-eutectic, and then there's fully forged. The difference between them: cast, they melt the metal down into liquid, mold it into shape, and then machine. Hyper-eutectic, which is the ones that I have, Wasner's, when they melt it, they inject silicon and other alloy metals to make it stronger, so it can hold, take some punishment.
Yeah.
And what the silicon does is it holds all the molecules really tightly together to make it stronger. So that's the forge element. And then the third one, which is the piston type that isn't the metal isn't compromised. It's almost like beaten into shape and machined. The main difference between the hyper-eutectic pistons and the fully forged pistons is that the clearances in the bore of the hyper-eutectic pistons can be run a lot closer to the bores of the engine than the fully forged pistons.
See, I told you we were going deep into this build. You asked for this, you're definitely getting it. Okay, great. So we got to the board. So we got forged pistons.
Forged pistons. Ordered a Garrett turbo from Owens.
Yeah.
I ordered a new intake from Aura.
Aura. Is that the bumper intake?
That's the bumper intake. I decided to upgrade the cams.
Yeah.
So I bought some from CNB in Italy. Fast road medium
cams.
Yeah, fast road medium cams. A T3 forge actuator, which is the bigger head to go on. A decap pipe, which was ceramic coated by Zercotech.
Yeah.
ARP head studs, advised by Adam and Grant, very important for forge build. A 180 comp gasket, forge dump valve, and a reinforced clutch from TMC. More about the build itself of the engine. There were mainly 4 stages.
Yeah. One
was dropping the engine out.
Yeah.
So disassemble everything. They washed they washed the block, warm water, soap, and then they started with the actual build, so the assembly. So second stage was balancing of the pistons, rods, and everything included. The importance of balancing, that when the engine is running, you have to think that the faster the engine runs, if there's anything unbalanced in there, the weight of that is going to become heavier, and that's going to put more stress on the engine. They weigh the pistons, they found the lightest one of the 4, and then they matched the other pistons to the lightest one. They did the same with the rods. The small end they weighed first, then the big end they weighed, so they weighed them separately. Third stage was preparing the block, so the block was honed properly. They had to do a bit of machining of the block to relieve the block from knocking from the rods.
You've transformed the exterior of this car, man. As in completely transformed it. It looks stunning. You've gone full Biposto kit on this?
Full Biposto.
I mean, I remember I even spoke to you about this and said, Bilal, I don't think it fits because the Biposto is a wider track.
Yeah.
But it fits, and
it does.
I mean, talk to me about that.
Because I saw the Biposto for the first time at one of the meets, I think, and I really liked it. The main parts man, Nick.
Nick Bailey, shout out to Nick.
Shout out to Nick. He sorted me out with full Biposto kit. Even we had some hiccups on the way, wrong arches, wrong parts arriving, but we got it sorted out in the end. Rear spoiler is from Japan, arqay, so I decided to do something different there. And then
well, I guess you had all this work done pretty kind of back to back. So I remember this build. It kind of started off as, I was at 240. And then the car's disappeared. It's gone for serious open heart surgery. Straight after that, full Biposto kit.
Yeah.
And this was December last year, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the parts started coming in December.
Yeah.
I gave it to fully loaded cars in Tottenham. The car was ready to go into Tony for mapping. Went into Tony for mapping. I think he spent about a month, 3 weeks minimum.
Yeah.
Mapping the car. I managed to get 300 brake horsepower of it. The torque was crazy,
insane,
crazy, really crazy. I think it was close to 340. I think it was 337 foot-pound of torque.
But it was progressive as well, wasn't it? The power delivery was progressive.
It was progressive, yeah.
But I mean, for those who haven't seen the video of when I drove Bilal's car, I'm going to overlay a quick acceleration now so you can see exactly what we're referring to. And I'm sure you guys can see from that clip, this car is just a beast, and that was at 300 horsepower. So then what happened after that?
So I had some, like we mentioned earlier, I had some issues with it. It was fluctuating, pulsing. Even when you were driving, you can hear it in the video.
Yeah.
And I took it back to Tony. It was basically on too much boost.
Yeah.
We turned it down, and the final smooth running was 292 brake horsepower, and I was content with that. I was fine with that. I decided to upgrade the brakes and a larger sump.
And brakes are Tarrocs?
Tarroc 6-pot, 300mm on the front, 300 discs on the rear, with yellow stuff pads.
So a proper brake setup for a proper car.
Yeah, needed it.
Because we're at 310 now, so how do we get there?
So after a while, HRE came out with their exhaust manifold.
Okay, so it was the manifold that gave you the extra.
It was the manifold. The manifold works absolute wonders in terms of the power delivery and being able to run less boost than I was before, but gain more power. So it was plus 18 BHP. Torque was settled at 310. You can work with 310 rather than 340 foot-pounds of torque. Tony had it again for a really long time. Three weeks felt like ages. felt like ages without the car. I had a call from him and saying, it's running much better than it was before using lower boost. I said, what is it making? And I was expecting him to say, 300, 305, and then he came out with 310, and I was like, wow, really? On that much boost. So what, 1.8 max.
So it's peaking at 1.8.
Peaks at 1.8, holds 1.7, 1.6.
That is insane.
And if you have a look at the graph, it's quite linear power, so I'm quite fortunate. HRE, very good.
Shout out to Mr. Benno.
Yeah, Ben sorted me out a deal. Thank you, Ben.
But and you guys are in for another treat, because the next video you guys are going to see is Bilal taking this car out around Silverstone for the first time around a track.
First time around the track, yeah.
310 horsepower here at tracks, and you guys will all get to see that. But mate, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe, smash that like button, and I'm going to see you all on the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye bye. You know I started this video off in Spain.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, literally, I started this video in Spain. And look at it now, look at the weather, it's just ridiculous.